And on Tuesday, President Trump followed through on his promise to release thousands more documents related to the assassination investigation of President John F. Kennedy. More than 60,000 pages of previously classified records were posted on the National Archives and Records Administration website and included unredacted versions of CIA memos that had been previously redacted. The latest release of documents comes years after Congress's requirement that all records in the investigation be released by 2017. And joining me now to talk more about the release of the files and what's in them is attorney Larry Schnapf, who has been in pursuit of the release of these records for some time, even going as far as to sue the government over their release. Larry, thanks so much for joining us today. Did we get anything new from these documents?
Well, you know, they dumped 31,000 pages last night at 10 o'clock, in addition to the 30-something thousand before then. Right now, there's really nothing new. There are a lot of these documents had minor redactions in them before yesterday. So we're learning more about the surveillance of of Mexico City. There's some names that were previously unknown. We're learning about the CIA's infiltration of the media in Miami. But nothing so far. We haven't seen, for example, the so-called new 2400 FBI files. So I'd say there were like 3,500 documents that were redacted before yesterday. So far, we've seen about a third of them. We had identified about 10 or 20 key documents that we wanted to see unredacted. And I will say that everything that's been released so far, for the most part, has been completely unredacted. Now, there's some bad quality in the documents, but that's just related. But one of the key documents we've been waiting for years was the so-called Schlesinger memo from 1961, where President Kennedy had asked Arthur Schlesinger for a plan to reorganize the CIA. And that there have been 2 pages completely redacted, and they released it yesterday completely full, unredacted. Now, the president last night also announced that he's going to, in addition to the records that are being released, there are some records that are sealed. For example, there's Carlos Marcello allegedly confessed while he was in jail that he was behind the assassination, and that tape had been sealed. The president said last night that they are in the process of having the Department of Justice unseal these records. So there's going to be more days of records coming.
You started to mention this in your answer, but what do we know about Lee Harvey Oswald from before the assassination? Did the government know his plan, and was he involved with the KGB?
So it's clear that they were following him. Part of what we're hoping to find out is more about his associations. Was he really a loner? Was he really a Castro sympathizer? Was he undercover, informant for conservative, for the Cuban exiles? We're trying to figure out more about his associations, and that's what's hopefully coming out in these documents. But we don't have any evidence that he was like an KGB agent or anything like that. In fact, I think there was one memo there was a record from the KGB making fun of his marksmanship abilities and stuff.
Many JFK experts expected these documents to give maybe some kind of evidence for a second shooter theory. That was not in there. Does that end the speculation around that?
No, I don't think any of us that were serious researchers expected, first of all, a smoking gun to say, here's how we're going to kill the president. And the nature of this information is not really going to be, from a forensic standpoint, like evidence of a shot from the front. It'd be interesting. We still want to see, there are allegedly 2,400 FBI files that have never been shared with anyone before that consist of about 14,000 pages. There might be some investigatory materials in there, but we just don't know what those are, and we haven't seen any. I mean, I focused on the FBI documents last night. We have a team of people at JFK Facts, And some people look in CIA documents, some are looking Department of Defense. I was looking at the FBI, and I haven't found any of these new documents yet. So I assume what's going on is they're scanning them, and then they're getting reviewed by Department of Justice, national security lawyers, and it's taking time to upload them.
Yeah. As someone who has followed this case for years, what do you think are the biggest unanswered questions still as you're going through these documents? What will you be looking for? You were kind of mentioning some of the things.
Well, there's categories of documents. You know, the FBI has a lot of records involving the mafia that were redacted. So we're looking to see any more evidence of possible mafia involvement in the assassination. We're getting some of the CIA people that had testified. Their testimony now has been completely released. So now we're looking at that to see if there's any information from that end. This is more about mosaic, filling in a mosaic. The reason that the government was holding back these documents was because they were using the mosaic theory that our adversaries, if we even release a discrete document, could help our adversaries create a mosaic of how we, you know, spy and do undercover work. By the same token, historians can now start looking at these documents and create our own mosaic about the story behind the assassination to learn the associations, maybe the leads that they pursued and stopped, the leads that they didn't pursue. But, you know, 62 years later, one of the problems here is that they don't release had a practice of not releasing documents until people died, so that the witnesses, you couldn't talk to people. And there's a couple of, you know, really important documents that were released recently that we would have liked to talk to the CIA people that put the reports together, but they're gone.
Right. That makes follow-up questioning impossible at that point.
Yes.
Final question for you. Some 60 plus years later, as you said, 62 years later, why is there still so much fascination around this case?
Well, you know, for us baby boomers, this was probably the most significant thing that happened in our life. We were like, you know, 10 years old or 12 years old or something when he was killed, and so that was a dramatic effect. But it's the end of our innocence as a nation. You know, before President Kennedy was killed, we had great trust in our government. We felt like, you know, it was an honor to work for the government. The government could do no wrong. And then we started having a series of lies. But more importantly, I think, is that this is not purely a historic event. The ability to lie and get away with things was reinforced in the Kennedy assassination, and it's influencing our government today because people like, for example, the Secret Service was asked for records in 1994, and they destroyed them, and no one got punished. So then January 6th rolls around, and the Secret Service then feels free to destroy emails. And I think if bureaucrats know that their actions are going to come to the sunshine, like, you know, Justice Brandeis once said, sunshine is the best disinfectant. If they know that their actions and their memos are going to see the light of day, they will be more responsive to our government. And this is about transparency. When we're seeing these redactions that are being made, that are now being unredacted, you can see that this is such extreme overclassification. I mean, there's a document that was released a couple years ago about us. The information in it we had known for years, but the reason it was redacted was because it was collected from our CIA listening station in Australia. And apparently we had promised the Australian government in the 60s we would never let anyone know we had this station. So they're continuing to hide this memo while the most popular show on TV in Australia is about our CIA station, Pine Gap. So these are the kind of some of the things that it's a real problem. That we have a serious problem in this country of overclassification. And hopefully the beginning of declassifying the Kennedy records will start maybe the process of declassifying other unnecessary secrets.
Yeah, your point about overclassifying things as reporters, we want to see more information released. So declassifying information is always good for our industry so we can look over what the government is doing as well. Larry Schnapf, thank you so much for your time and insights on this really interesting conversation.